Joe Rexrode has been a friend of the show, and I think a friend to the Tennessee sports fan, with his great columns for the Tennessean. Whenever here in the Tri-Cities, like to have sort of that Nashville perspective, maybe on the Titans, maybe on Vanderbilt, maybe on, the Predators, certainly, or the MLS. We go to Joe Rexrode. He also just spent some time in South Korea. Now, I don't know, who are you playing? Were you playing Hawkeye, BJ, Trapper, Frank Burns, Radar? Who are you playing? He was covering the Olympics there, and it was, I guess I want to ask you first here, Joe, not necessarily who your favorite MASH character was, but rather just, had you covered the Olympics before? Was this a first-time thing? Take us to the event and what it was like to cover this year's Winter Olympics.
I do appreciate the MASH references, and they didn't go over my head. So actually, it's funny though. Some of the scenery in the country, it really did remind me of that. The movie and the show, and the weather too. By the way, very very cold. But yeah, I've never done Winter Olympics before. I've done 2 summer games, London and Rio. So this is my first Winter Games, and it was a great experience, great opportunity, and it's always, it's different, of course, different sports, and really a little bit less hectic. They're just more sport. And, fewer local tie-ins for me in terms of Tennessee. We didn't really have any Tennessee athletes there. I did write about Hakeem Abdul-Sabur, who was from Knoxville, who's a bobsledder, and, some other areas of local interest. Ali Tolvanen, the Finnish forward who may join the Nashville Predators in the spring. But for the most part, not as jam-packed. But, it's a lot of the same stuff. It's just, you get to learn about some stuff that normally you don't cover or watch. You get to encounter a lot of athletes who really put in so much work for these very fleeting moments. And then, I lucked out and I covered Jesse Diggins and Keegan Randall winning the first women's cross-country gold, which was, I don't know if you saw that, Mark, it was an incredible finish. Jesse Diggins crossing the line, right at the end to win gold. And then less than 24 hours later, I got to cover U.S. Women against Canada for the hockey gold medal. And that's, frankly, that's one of the best games I've ever covered. It was incredible, exhausting to watch. I don't know what they must have felt like at the end of overtime. But, so, some great experiences. It's still about the sport. You get the backdrop too of South Korea, North Korea, and Kim Jong Un's sister coming, to deliver a letter, and all the things that went with that. Being just about 40 miles from the DMZ, it was all together quite an experience.
Well, I guess I should ask about that. It's impossible these days to separate sports from politics, and the Winter Olympics appeared to be no exception. You had Lindsey Vonn talking about, I'm not going to go to the White House. You mentioned there Kim Jong-un's, sister. Even the reports that the games weren't broadcast 50 miles away in North Korea, this sort of thing. But I guess as time went on, I started just looking at the sportsmanlike, the exotic nature of winter sports, the storylines, the event. You mentioned the women's hockey team. I got caught up in even the Olympic athletes from Russia winning the gold medal in hockey because I remember Kovalchuk. And I was like, this is the championship the Thrashers should have won. I might be the only guy who made that analogy, but that's the way that I took it as I'm watching the scrappy Germany team, And so there was always something different. I even actually had a bit of a withdrawal last night when there wasn't any Winter Olympics on. Here's my question. Did you think that the games actually transcended, maybe went above politics? Because after a while, I just didn't care that Lindsey Vonn didn't want to go to the White House. I just wanted to see her story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I do. And the thing is, there's always, politics in the Olympics, and you never really totally separate them. And of course, with this one, it's because of where it was and what has been going on, especially with the rhetoric between our country and North Korea, it was going to be unavoidable. But yeah, I actually think, frankly, Marky, for months going into this, I can't tell you how many people said,
Why was Norway so dominant?
That's a great question. I mean, I think, they've been very good. I mean, some of these sports, it's funny, I covered biathlon, and you really get a feel for, like, in Norway or in Switzerland, even in France, and countries, like, the biathletes are like they're superstar athletes, like these people in the stands, face painted, and their signs, and they were crying and cheering and chanting, and I mean, like, they were so into biathlon. So a lot of it is just, these sports are the main sports in Norway. We actually did a pretty big story on why Norway was so dominant. There's some interesting things in there. Dan Wolken wrote it, but one thing is they don't let their little league kids ever keep scored. I don't know if that really there's a big impact on this, but the idea was they're going to have sort of a balance of sport as you grow up, and it will be properly kept in perspective. But obviously they invest a lot in it, and these sports are their main sports. Our main sports are football and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So the skiing and biathlon and speed skating are their sports. So but it's still pretty impressive a country that size to produce that many gold medals.
I know that you mentioned the women's hockey and what was covered, and I hate to kind of bring the political debate, but I did talk a little bit about this show. I remember the song that they played after the Americans won was "Born in the USA," and I kept thinking, the original concept of that song that Bruce Springsteen sang, Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean, has completely been lost on the catchy chorus. I mean, it's a story about a Vietnam veteran who goes back to New Jersey and really struggles to adapt finding work and the like, and yet this is what they're playing, and it's because of the great chorus and such. Where I'm going with this is that the event still was, as you say, incredible. It was, the rivalry, first time in 20 years, the gold medal. People were excited about women's hockey, if you will, even though the specter of the sport really doesn't go that far beyond Massachusetts and Minnesota. But what did you think of Jocelyn Larocque taking off the silver medal, the Canadian player, during this whole event? Do you think she got too much of a backlash on that, or was it about right?
I do think she got too much backlash. I mean, look, it's heat of the moment. I mean, whichever side there was going to lose, it was. I mean, it's one thing when you have like a rivalry, you have the clear two best teams, and they play this incredible game, and they go, and hey, look, shootout, not an ideal way to end it, although I don't know how much more those teams had after 80 minutes, especially the last 20 of 4-on-4. But you just knew one side or the other was going to be absolutely devastated. It's not just all those things, it's the fact that, they play every year in the World Championship, but it's really they play every 4 years. It's really that every 4 years there's going to be a decisive game between these two. And so you put that into context, and at that moment, I can't get that upset with her about that, and I know she got some backlash and she apologized, and that's fine, but to me, she's a competitor, they're all competitors, and I can't get upset about that. The Canadians, this is how the Americans felt, 2014, of course, they had that game won and blew it late, and like you said, 20 years since they've had a gold medal, but for Canada, I think they thought they had like this mental edge on the Americans. They beat them in the preliminary round, and they had the lead late in the third, and so it was kind of like reversing roles and pulling the rug out from under them. And so it's probably as bitter a loss as you could have.
I would want to point out that I've actually covered high school hockey games, for, say, the state championship, and I can recall players on the losing team chucking their medals into the stands after losing a tough game. So, I think somebody tried to retrieve it and say, you might just want this after the heat of the moment or so. But after I've seen somebody chuck the medal into the stands, taking it off in that situation, I'm okay with it, really. I don't think it's the end of the world by any means, Joe Rexrode. Hey, how much of the figure skating did you get to see?
Not a lot. I did go one day because I was doing a thing on Scott Hamilton, who, of course, lives in Nashville at the Scott Hamilton Skating Academy. a lot of these Olympic kids as a kid growing up. Scott Hamilton, 84. Brian Boitano, Brian Orser, in 88. I mean, Debbie Thomas and Bill Kwan. And so, I mean, to me, Jerry Lipinski, that's always been kind of like the focal point of the Olympics to me from the American perspective. So it was kind of weird this year that that wasn't really the case. I think U.S. figure skating, has some work to do before the next one. But, I mean, being able to watch that, it was the first time I really watched figure skating at that level in person. I mean, it's just as impressive as you would think. I mean, it's the things that they do out there, a lot like gymnastics in the summer games. It's things that most humans couldn't even start to conceive of doing. So it's pretty impressive to watch.
Well, one of the things about the figure skating was that I thought was impressive was the French dancing pair. And forgive me, I don't have their names right in front of me, and they were very difficult to announce. But I think we know what we're talking about here. And, they had the now standard phrase wardrobe malfunction. But if memory serves, well, what impressed me is that the male skater did the gentlemanly act. As they continued their routine, they were able to rectify the situation. And I just compared that to say, what happened at the Super Bowl a decade ago, and, that there were no apologies, and, ooh, isn't this spicy? And that, well, here was another wardrobe malfunction, but this was doing it the right way. This was the gentlemanly thing. This was, your date, I don't know, a button loses from her dress and you give her a sport coat to cover up, that sort of thing. And I didn't necessarily think there was enough given of that gentlemanly nature of the French team, which I believe went on to get the silver medal. Just what were your thoughts about that moment? I was very impressed, and I thought that was something that the Olympics could teach all sports coming forth. Did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. No, you're right, and it was awfully impressive because it's not easy to do. And it's funny, too, an American ice dance couple, and their names also are eluding me right now, but I know they're from Michigan, had almost the same issue. It didn't quite get there, but it affected their routine. And so the woman sort of had to, a couple times, she sort of held back on some things they were going to do. So I think another thing to take from this is like ice dance, you got to figure out the wardrobe situation, But that's a good point, though. The way that they handled it probably is a good example for people.
Well, I think of that. And also, keep in mind, I mean, it's freezing there on the ice. You're a young lady and you're wearing, a mini dress. That can't be that easy to do. By the way, I got to ask that the music, though, for the figure skating was different. And my favorite moment had to be, and I know Scott Hamilton, who you wrote about, Joe Rexrode, really liked it. It was when Hungary's Yvette Toth performed to AC/DC. And instead of a short dress, she had leather on and all this. I just thought it was something that you wouldn't have seen before, but it was, the development of the sport and such. I guess, did you have a take on that? Did you get to talk to Scott Hamilton about why he liked Yvette Toth's performance dancing to AC/DC so much?
Yeah, we didn't talk about that, but I am with you and him on that. I thought it was great. And it's funny, too, because it was AC/DC Jailbreak, which really isn't like it's kind of a deep cut, of AC/DC. But I loved it. I mean, of course, as you mentioned, this is the first year they could have music with words. It's always been just the music. And most of the selections were probably in line with what you would expect. There was some operatic stuff. There was some Adele in there. Figure skating type stuff. I love that we had someone rocking some AC/DC. And hopefully in years to come we'll have more creative stuff like that.
Did you get a chance to run into Dale Earnhardt Jr.? To be honest with you, I didn't catch much of his commentary, but I know that it was big news to the Tennessean, if you will, or the Heartland person, Joe Rexrode, that he was giving commentary. Did you by any chance cross paths with him?
No, my teammate Jeff Calkins, who of course is Memphis commercial appeal columnist, went and spent a day with him. So we did something, but I did not. And it was a really good column Calkins wrote too. And of course, Earnhardt sort of, the gist of it was they went out and kind of observed and checked out the deal. It's like, hey,
They said it was NASCAR on ice, or speed skating was NASCAR on ice. That was what
Right, there you go.
Little Lee said in all this. I wanted to talk, figure skating, usually what we come out of a Winter Olympics, and you spoke of this before, that, you fall in love with a Dorothy Hamill, or dare I say, a Katarina Witt, who, I remember that in 1988, and, the Cold War was still going on. To have a Katarina Witt capture the world's heart, if you will, was really, I thought, a development to end the Cold War. Do you think that, I don't know, Alina Zagatova, who won the gold medal or something, do you think that they could have that sort of appeal that, say, Tara Lipinski had a few years ago and such? Or is it going to be more of the moment, and that Zagatova, she'll have her gold medal, but maybe the star power won't be there?
Yeah, it's hard to, again, you got to speak from your own experience and being of a certain age. It's hard for me to imagine anyone topping Katarina Witt.
Yeah.
Think back to 88. Yeah, Zagatova, and of course, she's surprised Medvedeva, who was, both of them are incredible. But, it's hard. I think Katarina Witt just had that. You're right, it was the Cold War still. It was East Germany, but it had that personality, that flair, that I don't know if those Russians have quite that. But it's an interesting question. And certainly, just when you talk about the sport itself, they're just incredibly impressive figure skaters. Really, frankly, I still think Medvedeva is better and probably still should have won gold there, but I think it's a big. To go back to what we were talking about earlier, I think it's too bad that U.S. figure skating couldn't come up with someone who's a true contender in this game, and that's something that you used to at the Olympics, and hopefully that'll change when it comes to 2022 in Beijing.
I know that Nagasu has talked about competing on Dancing with the Stars, so maybe she didn't medal, but maybe something would be come from that. By the way, did you think Nicole Schott dancing to the Schindler's List music? I don't know how many people would have recognized it as Schindler's List music if the comment wasn't made by the announcer during the routine. Were you in the arena when that happened? Was there a buzz going on of why is she dancing to this music, Nicole Schott from Germany? Or Schott, excuse me.
I wasn't. Of course, I saw the social media buzz, and it's one of those things that I wouldn't have recognized it. And, I guess it's, I don't know, I'm kind of torn on that one. Yes, it can be perceived as something in poor taste because it's the subject matter of the movie, but at the same time, it's a piece of music, and it doesn't have to mean one thing. So, I don't know, that was one of those things that people got very upset about. I guess I can't come to a point of outrage with that one. It's a little weird, I admit, but it's a piece of music on its own as well.
It should be mentioned that she wasn't the first figure skater to use music from the movie, and maybe, yes, classical music should be able to be used in not have the black mark against it. That's something to think about there. Hey, what did you think of, final question, when the Russians did win the gold in men's hockey? And, it was because they're the Olympic athletes from Russia. I guess they wouldn't have them sing their national anthem. I'm having flashbacks to Nikolai Volkov in the 80s or so, when they all stand together in the moment of them singing their own national anthem above the music that was being played. What was your take on that event? When the Russian men's hockey team won the gold and they sang their own national anthem after winning it, when I guess it was the Olympic theme that was going over, because, it's the Olympic athletes from Russia, and we can't play the national anthem or for whatever reason. I thought that they really came to the. Like I said, I was reminded of Nikolai Volkov from the old wrestling days and all that, singing the national anthem of the Soviet Union before he would go and have his bad guy wrestler. But I always kind of liked that back in the day, and I always kind of liked, I mean, the moment of the team singing their own anthem. I thought it was a nice moment. I just wanted to see what your take was on it.
Yeah, no, you know what? Hey, these athletes, look, if you're a Russian athlete and you haven't done anything wrong and love your country, then they should sing their anthem. I mean, you know, it's a mess with Russia because, let's face it, I mean, the scheme they had in Sochi with people breaking into the laboratory in the middle of the night, now urine samples, I mean, it's just a complete state-run cheating scam, you know, and by the way, you know, the whistleblower, of course, got out of there, and two of his associates magically turn up dead. I mean, it's an awful, disgusting situation.
Sure.
So you know, I think the IOC had on Russia. But the athletes who are there, who, you know, spill their guts, who go through the proper testing and are fine, I mean, you know, I mean, they should be allowed to love their country and revel in playing for their country, even if it doesn't say that they're playing for Russia. So, no, I think they absolutely earned that moment.
Well, I'm talking to Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean. He covered the Olympics, and I know we've had you on for a while. I want to just finish this up. The Continental Hockey League, that was what, you know, the players were from, not the NHL or the minor leagues of hockey. And I just got it in my mind that I was like, gosh, the Continental Hockey League, I know some of these guys. I know Kovalchuk. Is that sort of the equivalent of, let's say, the hockey USFL, only it's, you know, being played overseas? Or so did you get that, you know, comparison? Because I was looking at this and said, the KHL has some good play. Didn't Yager go over there? I mean, this is not a bad league. Did you sort of think of that as the KHL might be able to give the NHL a run for its money? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely number two.
Yeah. And so was the USFL back in the day, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, you know, USFL gets Herschel Walker and, you know, Jim Kelly and some of these guys that was trying to really make a run at the NFL early. But yeah, that's an interesting comparison. It's a good league. I mean, certainly watching it, I mean, like you said, you got Kovalchuk, you got Pavel Datsyuk over there, but you got also some of these young guys, Tolvin, and you got Rasmus Dahlin, who, you know, was hurt, but he's probably going to be the number one overall pick, the defenseman from Sweden. So you get that combination of guys who are just, you know, left the league for whatever reason, or maybe a little bit over the hill, and then the young guys. I mean, some of the Team America guys, Troy Terry, I think he's going to be a good player for the Anaheim Ducks. You know, Donato, I think he's going to score some goals in the NHL. So yeah, it was a pretty good level of play. I mean, it really was. It was certainly better than college or any minor league hockey we have in this country. And if you put together like an overall KHL All-Star team, you know, they could go on the ice with an NHL team. Absolutely.
I was thinking of, and Tennessee fans will like this, when Bobby Scott at the end of his career went to the USFL, and that's what I sort of looked at, the Isla Kovalchuks and, you know, those sort of guys, you know, playing over in the KHL. I want to totally change the gears on you, though. You continued to vote on the AP College Basketball Top 25, which had to be difficult to keep up to date over from South Korea on college basketball, but you did vote, I believe 2 weeks ago, ETSU number 24. They've since collapsed, but what impressed you about ETSU when you voted for them in your top 25?
Yeah, well, I feel like, gosh, it's the curse of the Rexrode vote. So like when they lost 4 or 5, 3 at home, it's too bad. But yeah, I mean, you look at what they had been doing, winning. Another, you know, I mean, gosh, they lost, by a bucket at Xavier? I mean,
Yeah.
You know, a lot of things to like about what this team has done this
They had a 22-point lead in the game. Perhaps we shouldn't be romanticizing a 2-point loss to Xavier when you had that lead, but yes, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, just imagine if they could have, I mean, some of these getting losses recently, just been a little bit better at finishing some of these games, the position they're doing. But, you know, another thing is when you're voting, you do sometimes really struggle at the bottom of that poll.
He's Joe Rexrode. He's gaining popularity one way or the other in the Tri-Cities, but when he's not talking to me, he's writing a heck of a lot of good stuff over there at the Tennessean and keeping us abreast. And like I said, good job. I mean, there's a lot of respect when you're the guy that gets the call to cover the Olympics, because you are writing about personalities, features, that sort of thing, and that's the sign of a good writer. Or at least I'd like to think so, because when I was doing the game, that's what they gave me, Joe Rexrode of the Tennessean. Anyway, Tri-City Sports Now. Hey, could Phil Fulmer be going to Alabama? I'll talk about that when we come back. Did I say Phil Fulmer? Yes, I did, didn't I? Oh, God. Okay, I meant Butch Jones, yeah. So I will say Phil Fulmer could not be. Well, that's a good way to keep him involved, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. So I'm okay with that. I'll make my correction there. And all right. Thank you now.
All right, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Marky.
Attention shoppers.